It's Quick Art Talk time. Hello and welcome, Mikkel Koes speaking. This is episode 34 and we are going to talk about your brush settings, why they matter, what to watch out for, how to use them with confidence, and how to get the upper hand as quickly as possible. In class, we focus the most on foundation, your design philosophy, the secondary skills which makes your work stand out, and basically everything else that will of course guarantee your chances of landing a job or just to forge your skills to an even further degree, even if you have already a job. That being said, the intention of this episode is to basically fight a collective problem which we often have with our students each and every term. And so this video will be kind of a backup, like a reinforcement, like when soldiers come in to help you on the battlefield, right? Like this will help you basically get a head start so that we in class can focus on what is even more important. Your brush settings really do matter. It doesn't end with just downloading the right one. I would always recommend that you forge and modify your own tool set so it will appeal to you personally. So that being said, I would like to jump right in, and I'm going to use, of course, my personal brush set, which you, of course, can also download. There will be a link provided in the description so that you can, follow along, but the following will apply to, I believe, all brush sets. Let's start with my favorite one, which is the legendary liner. It has an epic name, but I promise you there is nothing much about this one other than allowing me to exercise full control of my lines. It is basically the default chalk brush from Photoshop, and then I modified it, to just be small by default, so that every time I pick it, it will be at a reasonably small size for me to start drawing and sketching like I would traditionally do with a fine liner. In Photoshop you have a lot of settings. Brush settings are over here. I have them here on my panel, but by pressing F5 I believe by default they will pop up, and your brush settings will dictate how your brush is behaving. Now, for something that mimics a fine liner or something that you want to create, like comic book lines, some people call it like that, or basically lines that are very strong, communicative, and suggest a strong sketching style, I want my opacity to be somewhere always between 80 and 100. So opacity is the value over here. Flow, I honestly still don't know what flow does. Most of the time I'm just keeping it always on 100. Now with the legendary liner, I want in my brush settings to have the shape dynamics on, because this will mimic this dynamic energy within my lines. As you can see, the moment I turn it off, it doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that the lines are drawing by themselves, but it does mean that regardless of how hard I push on my Wacom tablet, the thickness of the line remains the same, and I'm losing a lot of energy, which just makes it look bad, right? So I want to make sure that this is always on. You can always check it by pressing F5 or go to Windows, and there you have it, brush settings. Basically, window in Photoshop gives you all the different sub windows that you can open. All right, so there you have it. Let's turn that back on, and the example here are that, for example, this Titan Mac that I also did during one of the demos during the advanced hardware design class. Of course there is some color and rendering here, but I still solely, in its kind of major manner, I still do rely on line art here the most, and you can see how that is holding up. There's a little bit of painting on top of it, but most of it is like lines like this, and I love it because when my shape dynamics are on, right, then I can really do kind of this kind of cool details that I sometimes have, like these the cameras, the optics, you know, they can really have like a nice kind of, you can easily get, you know, nice teeth into it basically, you know, like this could be like some kind of detail on top of a vision slit of a tank or something, right? And with some line weight, right, I can like thicken the line by pressing harder. I can suggest a little bit of shadow and whatnot. So that's kind of cool, right? So very simple, straightforward. I really love it. It's one of the best things that I've been using since, you know, since I became a professional concept artist basically. And I do kind of invite everyone to always rely on drawing. Not in the sense that is the way to do it, but at least when you are starting out, I think drawing doesn't only train your coordination, but it will also inevitably train your creativity and your design sensibility. So that is maybe a topic for another time. But yeah, everything here was done with the legendary liner, right? With the default chalk brush, but made smaller. Once you make it larger, you can see that it is kind of like has a softer edge, right? But that's why I like it, that it has somewhere that softness embedded in it, but on a smaller scale, it really looks sharp, but not too pixely, right? You know what I mean? Like if I would change this to a pen, then look what I get, you know, it's like, this is very pixely, very, it has too much teeth, it doesn't have that dynamic, whereas I here would switch to a brush, then it is, yeah, smooth, you know, nice, there's some nice edge between the canvas and the paint or ink in that manner, to witness. So this the difference. So that's about drawing. All right, I made here a quick box, and the number one mistake that we always find with people is that for some reason, and this might be a thing that is like embedded in us, right? Like you start out, you're still a beginner. I've been certainly there. The white canvas is there in front of you, and you want to build everything up with care, right? So it's like, oh, you know, opacity. Oh, that's a cool option, you know. 100 seems maybe a little bit too brutal. So, you know, I'm gonna start easy, do maybe 30, and now I'm trying to, you know, draw, right? Let's draw. It's like, oh yeah, I can like build up my values nicely, and it is so nice. I can take my time, right? And if it's too thick, I can maybe erase it. It's nice, you know, I have full control. But as you notice, my lines are losing confidence. Also, the color that I'm picking is not reflecting the correct color on the canvas, right? So let's say that I here made the same box, and these lines are much more communicative. They are striking. They are dynamic. They communicate more. So why I'm saying this, if I would want to, in this method, draw the same detail that I have here, then it will become a mishmash very quickly, and I would lose visual communication. So you want to avoid working with opacity. It is a non-realistic way to approach things. When you are working with traditional media, your ink, your fine liner will always carry this value, right? The value that your ink is. Maybe it is a black inking fine liner or a red one, but the color that you pick will be depicted inevitably on the canvas. And the other reason, of course, is that you are building better confidence. Now, in some cases, you might go with like 80, because, you know, certain pens maybe have like this bleeding effect, or the ink is not as strong, or it's like thinned out with some alcohol or some other thinners. So you might try it out, but anything kind of below 80, from my experience, will showcase that a certain artist is not confident enough. And, you know, line art really betrays kind of your skill level, I would say. So yeah, that's about drawing. I think that's it about drawing, because the next one is, of course, you know, the painting brushes. The painting brushes, I'm going to use this kind of example. This was also done during the advanced digital painting class. I did this kind of at the end. And yeah, a lot of topics were, you know, covered in this one: composition, frame, color usage, etc., etc. However, brushes are also very important. I was not obviously painting this only with the legendary liner. I was using here a vast array of brushes. By the way, if you download my set, right, it might be confusing, so this is a good opportunity to mention it. If you download my set, you'll have tons and tons of brushes that I've been using throughout my career, but I actually only use here the bottom row, kind of where the naming starts, right? My kind of naming, like the edger, the skin texture, these are kind of the brushes that I've been using for the last year or two. So these are kind of the most important ones, right? So that being out of the way, let's move forward. Now, moving from the legendary liner, let's pick, for example, the all-rounder, which is a good example. The all-rounder will have more options enabled here in the brush settings than the legendary liner had. The legendary liner only has smoothing and it has shape dynamics. If there will be questions, by the way, about what each option does, we can dive into it next time. I'm just like saying right now in a brief manner what to watch out for. The all-rounder utilizes a texture, as you can see. There you go. You see that on my canvas? It's nice, you know. Like, let's say that I want to, I don't know, add a little bit of fidelity and more clouds here behind the castle to kind of, yeah. So what I'm doing is I'm sampling here what the values I already have, and with kind of a painterly energy, I am adding a little bit of clouds. Now when you zoom in, you start to see that there is a texture going on, right? And that's it's mimicking basically kind of the oil gritty texture that you sometimes have on the canvas. The reason why that is visible is because our texture and transfer is on. So let me demonstrate it to you on a very whitish canvas. I have here the white canvas where we did the legendary liner example. Let me go to like, let me pick the same color for demonstration purpose. And with all the options on, the harder I press, the less of the texture will be visible. The softer I press, the thinner the brush will become and more of the texture will become visible at the same time. So this is pretty cool. And if I turn off texture, then there you go, there is no texture anymore, right? And only the brush thickness will change. If I will change a transfer, then yeah, I kind of lose the major properties of this brush. So it is important that, of course, transfer should be off in brushes where there is no texture and you always want to showcase the true color and value. But once a texture is in place, you want to keep transfer on, because transfer will dictate how much of that texture will be visible. Now that of course depends on further brush settings, but I'm right now talking in this brush setting in particular. Let's say that you want to modify this brush a little bit. Let's say you've downloaded my brush set and you don't like certain options about it. Let's say that you like the shape, but you don't like the texture as much. So you kind of have like, you can maybe create like, you know, very fast sketches of some like trees in the distance, right? Like some pine trees, right? It's kind of nice. It's like, you know, and you want to, let's say that I don't like this watering effect. Like, do you see, like, I'm having here a problem where my buildup of the value is getting stronger and stronger. So let's turn transfer off and let's see. Yeah, this will give me a more confident brush stroke. So let's kind of have so it's like, oh, this is kind of I downloaded the set, but I want to adjust it to my own liking. right? Let's have like here some like rocks in the front, some rocks in the back, maybe something like this, like a tree or something, right? Just fooling around, sketching around, experimenting how the flow will go. And let's put it like in frame, right? And then in the back, like maybe here I can play with the opacity, and in this case I want like give it like some clouds in the right. Then you have like a nice sketch, and I like this setting, and I want to save it like that so I don't have to turn off these options next time. So you can go here in your brush settings again, or just right click to go to like the properties tab, and from there we can basically have a new brush preset, and then we can call it the All-Rounder 2. And then so if I switch back to All-Rounder 1 to the original, then all the options will be on, but right, so with the texture and everything, so like with the like this. And if I go to All-Rounder 2, then I'll have the properties that I selected before. Okay, this is, I think, very handy, often overlooked that you can do it, I think, from what we have experienced from students. I mean, a lot of people know it, but then also like a lot of people forget about it or they don't know it. So this is why I'm mentioning this. So going back to this one, in this example here, I used, the All-Rounder many times. I also like this one where it creates, you see, like a very nice kind of bristle kind of effect. And again, the same options, I believe, the same options are on over here as well. You can turn transfer on and off here in this tab. So again, if I would go to the legendary liner, all right, and I'm building up a value, let's say, again, let's go to 90. This is what I want to do with inking, but maybe if I'm building up a value and I want to have a smooth transition somewhere, then there you go, right? The harder I pick, the harsher my value will become, right? Pretty simple and straightforward, but never ever would I advise to draw and communicate your lines with transfer option on. You can see that if I turn it off over here in the upper section just below help, it will turn itself off here in the brush settings as well. Okay. And ladies and gentlemen, that is kind of it. The rest is kind of the same straightforward thing. A lot of these are basically like the same rules apply to the rest. I hope that with this video I can eliminate a huge collective problem, build up confidence. I would say also try traditional media if you're like a concept artist from a new generation. I really believe that it will help you connect you better with the real world if you try markers, if you try fine liners, oil paint. I'm not saying that you should switch to it, but you need to build up an understanding, because a lot of these digital tools are still kind of calling back to the old traditional way. Right? And when you will be having a solid understanding how traditional media works, then it will be much easier for you to grasp the logic of all these options over here. Okay. I hope this has been informative, that it had informative value, that you were able to, get something out of it, and that it will, be a nice addition to your fruitful concept art journey. I would like to thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next one, and bye.